Over the years, I have noticed certain things from people that really are red flags. Certain things that indicate to me that these people should be looked upon with suspicion. We call these red flags. A red flag means a reason to be suspicious of someone, or a reason to tread cautiously when you are engaging with this person. Don't get too close and don't trust too early. And really, don't fully trust these people, or don't trust these people at all, really, for your own safety and for your own sanity. So, for example, when people criticize cops, when people sit there with their weird Charlie Manson voice and they're like, man, the cops, man, them cops are bad, man. Cops are bad. Man, them cops, man, they just arrested me for no reason, man. They arrested me for no reason. That's a red flag. Because you're talking about the American police force. You're talking about a police force that is the best in the world. If you look at the numbers between 2013 and 2020, in over 98% of the cases in which cops killed people, there were no charges filed against the police. You're talking about a damn near perfect police force. And for you to sit there and criticize it, knowing full well that no system is ever going to be perfect, but we have to look for what's good enough. To me, I think you're just insane. I think you're crazy. I think you're potentially dangerous, and you have some very warped, demented, even sinister ideas. Because if you look at the police forces of many other countries, Brazilian police, South African police, African police, or I already said South African, but like police forces throughout Africa. If you look at the Mexican police, like straight up, these police forces are extremely corrupt. Extremely corrupt. In fact, in South Africa, it's so bad that people need to hire their own freaking private security because they can't trust the damn cops. Whereas in the United States, people trust the cops so much to the point where everyone's calling the cops for their own problems. In fact, I think Americans, they probably call the cops a little too much, right? A lot of Americans will have this knee-jerk reaction where they'll just call the police for any reason or whatever. But that just shows you the amount of societal trust for the police force, which is a sign of a healthy relationship, okay? A healthy a relationship between the community and the police, which is why, if you look at the numbers, if you actually look at the statistics, most African Americans want cops in their neighborhoods. Why? Because they actually understand that you need a police force for a healthy society. So for people to sit there and nitpick little things about the American cop, this one cop did this years ago, this one cop did that, you can always find little cases here and there. You can always find these little cases. But here's the thing. You're never going to have a system that is 100% perfect. You're never going to find it. Never. You're always going to have some bad cops. You're always going to have some bad doctors. You're always going to have some people that are corrupt, some people that are in there for bad motives. You're always going to have this sort of thing. The question is not whether or not the system is perfect, because that's impossible. That's like asking me to find a perfect human being. The question is, can we have a system that's good enough? And the American police system is good enough. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, if you look at the statistics, it's good enough. Be thankful that you are not that you're not dealing with cops that are utterly corrupt, like the South African police, which is extremely corrupt, to the point where you have community watchdogs or community like local crime watchers and things like that, because they can't rely on the police. People who criticize child protective services, that's another huge red flag that I've noticed. People who sit there and say, oh, man, child protective services, man, CPS, man, they took away my kids, man, for no reason, man. They targeted me for no reason, man. They just took away my kids, man. And then you find out that they were charged with child neglect, or they were abusing the kids, something crazy like that. People who criticize child protective services are to be looked upon with suspicion. because there is a reason why we have child protective services, because there is a huge problem in the United States and in the rest of the world of child abuse. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. They are legions upon legions of cases of child molestation and child abuse and child neglect in the United States. And so for people to sit there and talk about how child protective services, man, it's bad, man, it's bad. Those people are twisted because they're not even acknowledging the necessity for an entity or for a department like Child Protective Services. Yes, you can find cases, I'm pretty sure, of Child Protective Services getting someone or accusing someone who was innocent or having someone arrested who was innocent. I'm pretty sure you can find cases like this, okay? But for the most part, we need Child Protective Services. Like, for the most part, Child Protective Services is a good and necessary thing. In fact, I shouldn't say for the most part. For the most part, it's good, but it's 100% necessary. That is the reality. It's 100% necessary. And you need a system like Child Protective Services because we have too many shitty parents out there. We have too many parents out there who do abuse their kids. In fact, we need Child Protective Services to get on the ass of the Catholic Church in the United States and in the rest of the world because of all of the cases of abuse that have come from the institution of the Catholic Church. I am willing to say that. I will say that and back it up. I will say that and back it up. Another red flag is when people sit there and say, like, for example, you could give them hundreds and hundreds of cases of Catholic priests and monks or people who work as lay persons within the church abusing kids or preying upon young men and just being absolute psychopaths. And they will sit there and say, these people, I guess you could call them Catholic apologists or idealists or people who will just indiscriminately defend the institution no matter what. These types of people will look at this legion of cases or these legions of cases, I should say, and they'll say, well, public school system has a lot more. Well, we're not talking about the public school system. We can have a conversation about the problems with the public school system, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the problems in the Catholic Church. And for one thing, if you are going to sit there and tell people that the Catholic Church was founded by God Almighty and that the Catholic Church was established by Jesus Christ, you need to be as fanatical and as zealous as the people in the Old Testament when it comes to fixing the problems in the Catholic Church. Because God established the temple. And guess what? There was a multitude of corruption in the temple. But you had prophets like Elijah or like Jehu, righteous kings who purged the temple of evil and wickedness. Why? Because the temple was founded by God, and we as humans, being instruments of God, being participants in the actions of God, in the judgment of God, in the justice and vengeance of God, we must make damn sure that we do the work of God on earth. But you have these people who will just look at all the evils in the Catholic Church and willy-nilly wave their finger around and say, oh, no, well, the public school system's got... Well, we're not talking about the public school system. And for one thing, if you're going to look at the Catholic Church and notice that it has corruptions that parallel that of the public school system, you better be freaking ashamed. You better be ashamed of what the Catholic Church is doing. You better be pissed off. If the Catholic Church is beginning to resemble the secular public school system, you better be pissed off. This is an institution founded by God. Treat it as though it was founded by God. Don't sit there and try to deflect. That's another red flag when people deflect, when you give them absolute facts, empirical, emphatic, conspicuous, obvious reality in front of them, and they sit there and deflect and talk about something else. These are all red flags. People who deflect from the evils of an institution, be it secular or be it religious. People who want to bash the cops when there is no need to bash them because we're never going to have a perfect system, but the American police system is damn near perfect. And people who attack Child Protective Services. These are all red flags. Also, people who will follow a movement with an insane amount of trust, to the point where they'll never even listen to the facts if you give it to them. So people who have this sort of weird obeisance, right? This weird obeisance, right? They just follow a movement, an ideological movement, and even if you give them the reality of how evil this movement is, they will never listen, right? This is a red flag. Now, I understand that people can be naive and they can fall into the trap of following these types of movements, be it BLM, be it, I don't know, some kind of crazy right-wing nationalist group. I understand that because I have fallen for these types of groups before. I believed that maybe the Civitas movement in France was good. Turned out those guys were Nazis. I thought the Pegida movement was good. Turned out those guys were Nazis. I thought, oh, maybe this one party in Germany, maybe they're good, or maybe this one party in the Netherlands, maybe they're good. Maybe Geert Wilders is good. No, they're all bad. They're all corrupt. Don't trust them, right? But the difference is that when I found out the reality of these groups, that they were evil and nefarious and wicked, that was it. I exposed them. I had the enthusiasm and the urge to tell other people about how bad these groups are. That's the difference. But if I were to see that reality, hey, these groups are Nazis, right? These groups are Nazistic, or they're ultra-nationalistic, or they're eugenic, or whatever. If I were to see that, but then continue to follow them, then I would be myself demonstrating a red flag, right? And you should be looking upon me with suspicion. Like if I was defending the AFV, after all I know, you should be seeing me with suspicion. Absolutely, but that's not the case. But you have some people who will follow a movement and think, oh, these people are great, and then you say, no, these people are bad, and they won't listen to you. Red flag. So, an example. I remember years ago, there was a video that went viral. It got like over 1 million views. And it was about this rabbi in Israel who was dying, and on his deathbed, he said the name of the Messiah. He gave the name of the Messiah, supposedly, right? This is how the story goes. I'm not even sure if it's true. But he gave the name of the Messiah. And he said that his name will be, it was like Yahshua or something like that. It sounded like the Hebrew name or the Hebrew way of saying Jesus. So everybody went crazy. People were spreading this video around. It went viral. People were acting like this rabbi was a prophet. And they were saying, look, this rabbi, look, he's a prophet. He's this, that, whatever. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that this rabbi was actually a master Kabbalist, which means that he was a wizard. I mean, he was into the occult. Kabbalah is Jewish occultism. And so I tried to tell this one guy, hey, because this one guy sent me the video, and he said, hey, watch this video, blah, blah, blah. So I did a little bit of research, and I found out that this guy was a Kabbalist, and I said, hey, this guy is a wizard. And he said, and this guy looked at me. Well, he didn't look at me because we were typing. We were doing chat. And he said, well, the Holy Spirit could use anybody. And at that point, I knew I was dealing with a zombie. This person is a zombie. He cannot be trusted because he cannot see the truth and then act upon it. He sees the truth, but he only acts upon his own emotions or his own idealism. And this is dangerous. This is how cults are formed. This is how fascist societies are formed. This is how communist societies are formed. But yet again, communism is pretty much a dead ideology now. But there's more of a chance of fascism actually taking power than anything else. It's like what's been taking place in the Netherlands. You've had these riots against COVID restrictions in the Netherlands. And conservatives in America will look at that and say, oh, look, this is great. The people are standing up. Look, they're rising up. It's like, no, they're rioting. They're not rising up for anything good. They're rioting, just like the crazy anti-cop demonstrators in 2020 were rioting and destroying property. Amazingly enough, conservatives condemned that property destruction, but yet you'll find conservatives in America saying, "Oh, look, this is great. Look, this rioting is amazing." But if you look at the anti-COVID movement in the Netherlands, one of the political parties that's really backing it, really backing demonstrations against the COVID restrictions, is the Forum for Democracy Party, which, if you look at its members, it has a lot of eugenists in it. It's a red flag. That's it. I don't trust it. It's as simple as that. Or, for example, if somebody says, "Oh, look, these nationalists in Europe are so great," but then you give them the evidence as to why they're not great, why they're dangerous, why they are insidious and nefarious, and what do these people say? They don't say, "Hey, Ted, you're right about that. I should have listened. I should listen to this." No, they say, "Well, I think this is left-wing propaganda. I think this is fake news. I think that this is exaggerated." They try to deflect. They try to label the information as utterly false. In other words, they are demonstrating that they are walking red flags. Okay? It's insane how much of this craziness that I've seen over the years. But I've noticed these red flags in my life, and I'm telling you guys that you should also be aware of these red flags because, yeah. I remember, I'm not a big fan of Michael Medved. For those of you who don't know, Michael Medved is I'm not even sure if he's still on radio, but I remember back in the day, he was this big conservative radio host. I think he's probably still on radio. I'm not sure. But I used to listen to him sometimes on a weekly basis. Is he still in radio? I'm going to look him up real quick. Michael Medved. Yeah, he's actually still on the radio. Okay. So Michael Medved, he would do this thing every Friday. It was like Conspiracy Friday or something, and he would allow people to call him up and tell him why they believe in certain conspiracy theories, right? Why they believe 9/11 was an inside job, or why they believe that the Twin Towers were demolished with bombs, why they believe that the FEMA camps are there to intern Christians or something like that. I don't know. And he would then debate them. He would say, "Okay, give me your best conspiracy theories, and I'm going to debate you. I'm going to tell you why I think you're wrong." Because he had studied all these conspiracy theories pretty deeply. And I remember he said something that I never forgot. He said that people who believe in conspiracy theories are dangerous, and he said that you should stay away from them. And I think he had a point. Now, not all conspiracy theories should be not all historical facts should be labeled as conspiracy theories. For example, the Reagan event, the event that took place within the before the Reagan administration, in which Ronald Reagan's campaign squad went to the Iranians during the Iran hostage crisis and said, "Hey, keep the hostages until after Reagan wins the election, and then release the hostages, and then in turn, as a favor to you for doing that for us, we will allow you to buy weapons from the U.S. and Israel." Okay, now that I forget the name of it. Oh yeah, the October Surprise. That's what it's called. The Reagan October Surprise. That has been labeled for decades as a conspiracy theory, but there's so much evidence to back it up, I don't really consider it a conspiracy theory anymore. Or another one, Gladio. NATO intelligence agencies provided weapons and training to Nazi and far-right paramilitaries in Europe. That has been labeled as crazy numerous times, but there's so much evidence to back it up, so many newspaper clippings from different European media sources, that it's difficult for it to just be called a conspiracy theory. Like it would just be, I think, inept or just plain ignorant, really, just to call it a conspiracy theory. So there's certain things that are called conspiracy theories that don't deserve to be called conspiracy theories. But there are certain things that are just bullshit, okay? That are just pure nonsense and bullshit. Child Protective Services is there to target Christians. That's bullshit, okay? I have known plenty of Christian families in my life who took care of their kids well, and they never got arrested by Child Protective Services, never got tried by Child Protective Services, nothing like that. Never had to have a social worker after them, nothing like that. When they say that CPS is targeting Christians, what they mean by that is it's targeting homeschoolers, okay? It's targeting homeschoolers. And yeah, they are in a way targeting homeschoolers because homeschoolers have a huge reputation of having lots of abuse. It's endemic within the homeschooling world in the United States. There are legions of stories that you can find online of families abusing their kids, homeschool families abusing their kids. It's very, very common, actually. And that's why, yeah, they will tend to target homeschoolers. So a lot of this stuff is just bullshit. But anyway, those are the red flags. And I thought that I would give you my thoughts on this today. And hopefully this will help you out. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.
Heute spiel ich nur die Spiele, die ich selber mag. Heute wird nur das passieren, was ich sag. Heute gibt's mal ausnahmsweise keinen Kompromiss. Denn heute gibt's nur einen, und zwar mich. Alleine sein. Alleine sein. Heute bin ich einfach mein, in vertrauter Einsamkeit. Alleine sein. Alleine sein. Heute bin ich mir genug, und das tut auch mal ganz gut. Alleine sein. Heute ist mir ganz egal, was du wohl davon hältst. Denn heute mach ich Urlaub mit mir selbst. Alleine sein. Alleine sein. Heute bin ich einfach mein, in vertrauter Einsamkeit. Alleine sein. Alleine sein. Heute bin ich mir genug, und das tut auch mal ganz gut. Alleine sein. Alleine sein.